Officer Rhys Harlan's flashlight beam cut across Dr. Elijah Brooks's face in the hospital parking lot. Hands where I can see them now. Elijah froze mid-reach for his briefcase, still in scrubs from his shift. His hospital ID badge swung from his neck, name clearly visible. "This your car?" Harlan circled the modest Honda Civic, hand resting on his holster. Elijah nodded slowly, carefully. "Stolen vehicle matching this description. Step away from the vehicle." 3 more patrol cars arrived within moments. Sirens split the late-night silence. Elijah's hand stayed raised as backup officers emerged, footsteps echoing across empty asphalt. One officer kicked his briefcase open. Files scattered across the ground. Medical journals, patient charts, a faculty parking permit with his name printed in bold letters. Have you ever been treated like a criminal while doing your job perfectly? This is one of those real-life stories that reveals how black stories like Elijah's expose systemic problems. Harlan called dispatch on his radio, voice carrying across the lot. Suspect matches profile, black male, late 30s, professional clothing as disguise. Elijah took a slow breath. Long ER shift. Double trauma surgery. He had parked in his assigned spot like he did every shift. His voice stayed level, controlled. "Officer, I'm Dr. Elijah Brooks. I'm a trauma surgery resident here. I just finished my shift." Harlan cut him off with a raised hand. "Save the story for the station. ID could be fake." A second officer, Rhys, approached from the patrol car. He checked his computer screen, squinting at the monitor. His brow furrowed. He walked over to Harlan, whispered something Elijah couldn't hear. Harlan glanced at the screen, then back at Elijah. He shook his head. "Run his name for warrants," Harlan ordered. Elijah's jaw tightened. He knew this script. He'd lived versions of it before. "Officer, my shift supervisor is Dr. Helen Park. She's inside the building right now. One phone call will confirm everything. I decide who I call." Harlan stepped closer, invading Elijah's space. "Hands behind your back." As Elijah turned slowly for cuffing, the contents of his open briefcase became visible to anyone looking. A lanyard with multiple key cards lay among the scattered papers. Most were standard hospital access cards. But one was different. A black card with gold embossing, face down in the pile. The text wasn't visible from this angle. A leather folder rested nearby, embossed with City Medical Board in silver lettering. Elijah's tablet screen was still lit, showing an email preview. The subject line read, "Commissioner Brooks, Budget Approval Meeting." His phone buzzed repeatedly on the ground. The screen illuminated with each call. Mayor's office flashed across the display, then it went dark, then lit up again with another call. Harlan saw none of this. His focus was on control, on procedure, on the narrative he had already constructed. He secured the handcuffs, metal clicking against Elijah's wrists. The hospital's side entrance opened. Jamal, the night security guard, stepped out. He was in his late 50s, black, wearing his uniform jacket against the October cold. His eyes went wide when he saw Elijah in handcuffs. "What's happening?" Jamal called out, walking quickly toward them. "Dr. Brooks?" Harlan pivoted toward him. "Stay back. This doesn't concern you." Jamal pulled his radio from his belt. "We have a situation in the lot. Dr. Brooks is being detained by police. I need a supervisor out here." "Get that rent-a-cop away from my scene." Harlan gestured to Rhys now. Rhys hesitated. He was still looking at his phone, his face going pale. He glanced at Elijah, then at Harlan, then back at his phone. He didn't move to intercept Jamal. Harlan didn't notice Ruiz's hesitation. He was focused on Jamal, on maintaining control of the situation. The side entrance opened again. Sandra Yates, the hospital night administrator, emerged. She was holding her smartphone, already recording. "Officer, I'm Sandra Yates, administrator on duty." Her voice was firm, professional. Dr. Brooks is our chief trauma resident. What's the cause for this detention? Police business. Harlan turned to face her, hand moving toward his belt. Turn off that phone or you'll be joining him. I'm documenting a potential civil rights violation per hospital policy. Sandra didn't lower the phone. This recording is being saved to our secure server in real time. Harlan's jaw clenched. He took a step toward her. Elijah spoke for the first time since the cuffs went on. Officer Harlan. His tone was calm, steady. Ms. Yates is following protocol. The hospital requires documentation of all incidents involving staff. I didn't ask you to speak. Harlan didn't look at him. More people emerged from the building. 2 nurses ending their shifts, an EMT, a janitor. All of them knew Elijah. All of them pulled out phones. The parking lot filled with small glowing screens, all pointed at the same scene. Rhys finally ran Elijah's license properly through the system. The computer returned detailed information. Dr. Elijah Brooks, MD, address listed in an upscale suburb. And then a note. Sealed advisory. Command level access. Rhys's hand shook slightly as he showed Harlan the screen. His record was completely clean. Not even a parking ticket. Plenty of criminals use fake credentials. Harlan barely glanced at the information. I've seen doctors deal drugs. We're bringing him in for verification. But the car isn't stolen. Dispatch confirmed there's no report matching. We finish our job. Harlan cut him off. Standard procedure. Elijah stood quietly, hands cuffed behind his back. His jaw was tight, but his breathing stayed controlled. This wasn't anger. This was something else. Calculation. Patience. He had been here before in different forms, different parking lots, different pretexts. His silence was strategic, not submission. Harlan guided him toward the patrol car, hand on his upper arm, grip unnecessarily firm. As they moved, Elijah's phone vibrated again on the ground where it fell. The screen lit up one more time. Chief Donovan, urgent, flashed across the display. No one picked it up. The call went to voicemail. The screen went dark. Sandra kept recording. Jamal stood with his radio, waiting for the supervisor he called. The small crowd of hospital staff watched in silence. Rhys stared at his computer screen, reading the sealed advisory notice he didn't have clearance to open. And Elijah Brooks, hands cuffed behind his back, hospital scrubs still on, ID badge still hanging from his neck, waited. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He didn't demand to speak to anyone. He simply waited, eyes forward, breathing steady. He knew something no one else in this parking lot knew yet. This night was going to change everything. Not just for him, not just for Officer Harlan, but for the entire department. But that revelation was still hours away. Sandra Yates didn't stop recording. She shifted her angle to capture Harlan's badge number clearly. Then she opened Twitter on her phone and started a new post. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. Our trauma surgeon being arrested in our parking lot for matching a description. No stolen car, no crime, just a black doctor after his shift. She tagged the city police department's official account. She added a hashtag Justice for Dr. Brooks. She attached the video clip. She hit post. The engagement counter started climbing immediately. Inside her car, Sandra watched the numbers rise. She called the hospital's media relations director, waking her up. We have a situation you need to see. Check Twitter right now. Minutes after the initial post, a local reporter monitoring police scanners saw the video. He was awake anyway, working the overnight crime beat. He called the hospital. He called the police department's public information office. No one answered. He retweeted the video with his own commentary. His thousands of followers saw it immediately. The hashtag Justice for Elijah began trending locally, then regionally. Harlan ordered Sandra to stop filming. She refused, citing the First Amendment. He threatened to arrest her for interference. She reminded him she was standing away on hospital property, not interfering with any legitimate police activity. Rhys watched this exchange with growing concern. He pulled out his personal phone and texted someone. His thumbs moved fast. A white SUV pulled into the parking lot. Sergeant Lena Kowalski emerged, night shift supervisor for this district. Rhys had briefed her by phone during the drive. She walked directly to Harlan. "What's your probable cause?" Her tone was clipped, professional. "Suspicious vehicle. Evasive suspect behavior." Harlan didn't look at her, focused on his paperwork. "His car isn't stolen, he works here. Dozens of witnesses confirm it." Kowalski gestured at the growing crowd. "Uncuff him. He could still have warrants." "Procedure says he has 0 warrants. I checked personally." Kowalski's voice dropped lower. "This detention is over." Harlan hesitated. His hand moved toward the handcuff key on his belt. He unlocked one cuff slowly, then the other. The metal released with a soft click. Elijah rubbed his wrists. He said nothing. Harlan straightened, defensive now. "I'm filing a report about his aggressive posture and failure to comply immediately. Let's see if the hospital likes that investigation." The implicit threat hung in the air. Make Elijah's life difficult through paperwork, background flags, future stops, a permanent note in the system. Elijah spoke for the first time in minutes. His voice was calm, measured, carrying no anger. "File whatever you need to, Officer Harlan. I'll be filing my own report." Harlan smirked. "Good luck with that." Kowalski apologized to Elijah privately, voice low enough that the phones couldn't pick it up clearly. She offered to drive him home. Elijah declined politely. He walked back to his car, collecting the scattered files from his briefcase. His movements were methodical, unhurried. The crowd began to disperse. Sandra ended her live stream. The view count showed thousands of people had watched. The video would stay on the hospital's Twitter account, permanent, time-stamped, undeniable. Elijah sat in his Honda, hands resting on the steering wheel. He took slow breaths. His face showed exhaustion, humiliation, but also something else. Control, calculation. This wasn't his first encounter. It wouldn't be his last. But this time was different. Harlan lingered near his patrol car, talking to 2 other officers who arrived as backup. Thompson and Hayes, both younger, both eager to impress senior officers. From Elijah's car he could see them, but couldn't hear their words, only body language. Harlan gesturing dismissively, the others nodding. One of them laughed. Elijah picked up his phone from the passenger seat where Rhys had placed it. After collecting his belongings, he scrolled through missed calls. Chief Donovan Hale, personal cell. Multiple attempts. His thumb hovered over the callback button. He didn't press it. Not yet. Instead, he opened a voice memo app. He spoke quietly, clearly. Incident. Officer badge number named Harlan. Detained without cause. Handcuffed. Threatened hospital staff. Sergeant Kowalski intervened after minutes. Incident recorded by multiple witnesses and hospital surveillance. Officer made clear through selective enforcement and language that this was racially motivated. Adding to documentation file. He saved the memo. The file name showed automatically Incident 48. He opened the folder where it was stored. The label read Pattern Documentation. Dozens of other audio files were already there. Dates, times, badge numbers, locations. Some were his own encounters. Traffic stops, street interactions, building entries questioned. Others were recordings sent to him by people who knew he was collecting evidence. Teachers, lawyers, pastors, engineers. All professionals, all black, all with similar stories. He had been building something, not for revenge, for reform, but no one knew this yet. Elijah started his car and drove home. While he drove, the internet didn't sleep. By early morning, the video clips from different angles had spread across multiple platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Each platform's algorithm recognized engagement and pushed the content higher. The police union issued a defensive statement. Officers followed standard protocol for suspicious activity reported in the area. No suspicious activity was reported. The statement was technically false, but it was out there now, part of the narrative. The hospital released a counterstatement. Dr. Brooks is a valued member of our medical staff and was the victim of apparent racial profiling. We are cooperating with all investigations. By morning, #JusticeForDrBrooks had tens of thousands of tweets. Cable news morning shows mentioned it in their trending stories segment. Doxing attempts on Officer Harlan began from anonymous accounts. Elijah's supporters, not Elijah himself, dug up Harlan's social media, his address, his wife's workplace. Elijah didn't participate in any of this. Elijah arrived home to his wife, Sophia, and 2 kids, all sleeping. He didn't wake them, he showered. He put on a suit, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored. He made coffee in the quiet kitchen. He checked his email. At morning, his phone rang. Chief Donovan Hale again. Elijah let it go to voicemail. He wasn't ready to talk yet. He needed to control the timing of this conversation. Another call. The screen showed Mayor Elena Vargas' direct line. "This one," he answered. "Good morning, Madame Mayor." "Elijah, I just saw the video. I'm so sorry." Her voice carried genuine distress. "We need to talk. Can you come to my office?" Elijah paused. A strategic pause. "I have a better idea. Come to mine." Silence on the other end of the line. "Your office?" Vargas sounded confused. "I'll text you the address. Bring Chief Hale." Elijah's tone was polite but firm. Not a request. An instruction. He ended the call before she could respond. The power dynamic had shifted. Elijah was no longer reacting, he was directing. And in hours, everyone would understand exactly what that meant. Elijah sat in an office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Morning light streamed across a mahogany desk. Behind him, an entire wall displayed framed credentials in neat rows. MD from Johns Hopkins, MPH from Harvard, JD from Yale, earned through night school while completing his medical residency. But it was the lower row of frames that told the real story. Chair, City Police Oversight Commission, Volunteer Commissioner, Mayor's Public Safety Advisory Board, Special Advisor to the Mayor, Public Safety Reform, current. The door nameplate was visible when his assistant Jennifer entered with coffee. It read Dr. Elijah Brooks, MD, MPH, JD, Special Advisor to the Mayor, Public Safety Reform. Mayor Vargas and Chief Hale just entered the building. Jennifer set the coffee down, her voice efficient. "Conference room B is ready." "Should I do anything about the press?" Elijah looked up from his tablet. "What press?" "A dozen outlets outside. They followed the mayor's car from City Hall." Elijah didn't smile, but something flickered across his face. Satisfaction. Let them wait. Mayor Elena Vargas entered the conference room first. She was a black woman in her late 50s, a political veteran who had worked with Elijah for years on reform initiatives. Her face showed embarrassment and anger, but also weariness. She knew Elijah well enough to recognize when he was operating strategically. Chief Donovan Hale followed. White, late 50s, decades on the force. He had met Elijah at commission meetings, shaken his hand at public events. But clearly he hadn't connected the doctor being arrested in a viral video to the commissioner who reviewed his department's policies. "Dr. Brooks, I can't apologize enough." Hale started talking immediately, his discomfort obvious. "Officer Harlan will be—" "Sit down, Chief." Elijah's tone wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. Hale sat. Vargas sat. They faced Elijah across the conference table. Elijah opened his tablet, connected it to the wall-mounted screen. A presentation loaded. The first document appeared. Officer Harlan's personnel file, complete, unredacted. 14 years on the force. Dozens of civilian complaints, all dismissed or marked unfounded by internal affairs. Elijah didn't editorialize. He simply highlighted the numbers. Most complaints from Black or Latino civilians, all dismissed. A few from white civilians resulted in counseling letters. The second document, body camera footage analysis. Elijah's team, working under Official Oversight Commission authority, had pulled Harlan's last hundreds of traffic stops via Freedom of Information Act requests. A high percentage of stops involved people of color. The city's demographic data showed a lower POC population. Average stop duration for white drivers was minutes. Average stop duration for black drivers was much longer. Multiple uses of force over years. Most against people of color. One against a white suspect who was actively fleeing and attacked the officer first. Hale's face went gray. How did you obtain all this data? My commission has independent access to all body camera footage per city code. You voted for that code. Chief, you attended the signing ceremony. The third document appeared, audio file. Harlan's voice captured on body camera he thought was off. Speaking to his partner after releasing a black teenager from a traffic stop. Elijah played it. The audio quality was clear. Punk got lucky. Next time he won't have daddy's lawyer on speed dial. These kids need to learn respect. The room went silent. Hale tried to respond. That investigation was sealed. We handled it internally. Your department sealed it. My commission accessed it through our statutory authority. Nothing was hacked. Nothing was stolen. We simply exercised the oversight powers the city council granted us. Elijah paused. Powers designed specifically to catch situations like this. The fourth document, a spreadsheet, color-coded. Dozens of documented incidents of racial profiling by Officer Harlan over years. Other officers showing similar patterns. Combined total complaints dismissed without proper investigation. Internal affairs investigators were named. 2 of them had social media posts Elijah's team had discovered, affiliated with white supremacist groups. Screenshots appeared on the screen. Posts about protecting our neighborhoods and taking back our streets. Coded language but unmistakable in context. Elijah finally looked up from the screen. Last night wasn't an anomaly, Chief. It was policy. Your policy. Hale leaned forward, scrambling. If these officers are problems, we'll handle it internally. Retraining, reassignment to desk duty. You'll do more than that. Elijah slid a bound document across the table. 87 pages. Vargas picked it up first. Her eyes widened as she scanned the executive summary. She hadn't seen this part yet. Elijah had kept it close until now. The 5th document appeared on screen. A draft federal consent decree. Official Department of Justice letterhead, Civil Rights Division. I've been coordinating with DOJ for months. They've been investigating the department independently of my commission. Pattern and practice violations. Sufficient evidence for federal takeover. Vargas inhaled sharply. Elijah, you're bringing in the feds. I was bringing in the feds. Past tense. Elijah met her eyes. I paused the process last month when you appointed me to lead the reform task force. I wanted to give the department a chance to fix itself. He looked at Hale. Last night proved that was naive. Hale's composure cracked. You can't unilaterally decide to bring federal oversight. The union will fight this. The mayor will have to. Elijah turned to Vargas. Do you want to fight a federal consent decree in court for years while the city's reputation burns? Or implement reforms voluntarily and control the narrative? Vargas was trapped. Politically, supporting Elijah was her only option. He was credentialed, respected, and now nationally visible as a victim. Fighting him meant appearing to defend racial profiling. "What do you need?" Her voice was resigned. Elijah didn't gloat. He opened the bound document to page 1. The Accountability and Trust Initiative. "I've been drafting this for years with input from civil rights attorneys, community leaders, and reform-minded officers." He walked them through key provisions. Immediate actions. Week 1. Officer Harlan terminated, not merely suspended. Other officers with similar complaint patterns suspended pending full review. Captain who signed off on dismissing Harlan's complaints reassigned out of internal affairs immediately. Structural changes. Months 1 through 6. Mandatory body cameras always on during public interactions with no officer control over recording functions. Independent civilian review board for all complaints. Public database of every stop, search, arrest, and use of force. Officer names, badge numbers, outcomes fully searchable. Training overhaul, year 1. Hours of de-escalation training, up from current. Hours of implicit bias workshops, up from 0. Crisis intervention training becomes mandatory, not optional. Accountability metrics ongoing. Officers with sustained complaints face automatic termination review. Use of force reports reviewed by an external panel within hours. Traffic stop data audited quarterly by Elijah's commission. The kicker, printed in bold. Failure to comply with any provision triggers automatic implementation of the federal consent decree with no further negotiation. Hale tried one more deflection. "This is insane. You're treating cops like criminals. We have a union contract. Your contract requires adherence to all applicable laws. Racial profiling violates the Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment." Elijah's tone stayed calm. Officers who engage in racial profiling lose qualified immunity. They become personally liable under Section 1983. That means personal assets, personal bank accounts, personal homes. The union can't protect officers from federal civil rights violations. City Attorney Reeves nodded. She had vetted every word of Elijah's plan. It was legally sound. Hale knew he was cornered. Accept the reforms and possibly save his career or fight it and lose to federal intervention anyway. His department's reputation would be destroyed either way, but one path gave him some control. This is a lot to implement. We'd need budget increases, time to negotiate. You have hours to accept the framework in principle. Implementation begins immediately after. The mayor had already repurposed funds from the planned new precinct building. Vargas nodded confirmation. She and Elijah had coordinated this morning off camera. "And Chief." Elijah's voice stayed level. "If Officer Harlan is still employed in any capacity after tonight, I release the recordings." Everyone froze. "What recordings?" Hale's voice was barely above a whisper. "The dozens of my documented encounters over years, plus more from other professionals who contacted me, doctors, lawyers, teachers, pastors, all time-stamped, all corroborated by witnesses or camera footage, all showing the same patterns of racial profiling your department has systematically ignored." He had had this leverage all along. He had been building a case, not for personal revenge, but for systemic change. And now everyone in this room understood that Elijah Brooks wasn't just a random victim that night. He was the wrong person to profile. The location shifted to police department headquarters, commissioner's conference room. Same day. Hale had called an emergency meeting. Every seat at the long table was filled. Deputy Chief Maria Hernandez sat to Hale's right. She was Latina, reform-minded, passed over for chief despite exemplary records. Her expression was carefully neutral, but her eyes were sharp, watching everything. Captain Morris, head of Internal Affairs, sat stiffly across from her. Old guard, defensive. His signature appeared on complaint dismissals involving Officer Harlan. Lieutenant Sarah Park, training coordinator, sat at the far end. Quiet, progressive. She had been pushing for implicit bias training for years. Budget constraints always shut her down. 3 union representatives occupied the corner seats. Dale Kirkman, union vice president, sat front and center. White, mid-40s, aggressive defender of what he called officer rights. His reputation included fighting every disciplinary action, no matter how justified. City Attorney Michelle Reeves sat near the door. She was ready to leave quickly if needed. And Elijah Brooks sat at the head of the table. Hale technically led this meeting, but every eye tracked Elijah. News vans were still parked outside. The viral video had been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. Hale opened with formalities. Officer Harlan is suspended with pay, pending investigation. Standard procedure, nothing remarkable. He looked at Elijah as if this should satisfy everyone. Elijah didn't respond to the announcement. He opened his laptop, connected to the room's projection system. When a patient comes into the ER with sepsis, you don't treat the fever. His voice was calm, professorial. You find the infection. This department has sepsis. The first slide appeared. Disproportionate enforcement citywide data. Elijah had compiled this using public records, FOIA requests, and commission authority. Black residents made up % of the city's population. They accounted for % of traffic stops and % of arrests. White residents made up % of the population. They accounted for % of traffic stops and % of arrests. Use of force statistics were worse. Black civilians were times more likely to experience force during arrest than white civilians in the same arrest categories. Same charges, same circumstances, radically different treatment. Elijah let the numbers sit, no commentary needed. The second slide. Financial impact. This got the attention of the budget-conscious people in the room. The city had paid millions in misconduct settlements over the last years. % of those settlements involved officers who had prior complaints in their files. Average settlement cost. Insurance premiums for police liability had increased due to the department's risk profile. Current trend analysis projected millions in settlement costs over the next years if nothing changed. Union VP Kirkman interrupted. These statistics don't account for crime rates in different neighborhoods. You're cherry-picking data to make officers look. I controlled for crime rates, poverty levels, and call volume. The disparity holds. Elijah didn't look at Kirkman. He advanced to the next slide. Page of the report you received this morning, but apparently didn't read. Captain Morris tried a different angle. Dr. Brooks, we understand you had a bad experience, but using your position to settle a personal grudge, Captain Morris, you've personally dismissed complaints against Officer Harlan over years. Your signature is on every closure memo. Would you like me to project those memos now? We can review your stated reasons for dismissal one by one. Morris went silent. The third slide. Officer Harlan case study. Elijah dissected the incident frame by frame using body camera footage now public via news broadcasts. Initial approach to vehicle. No reasonable suspicion articulated. No call about a stolen vehicle. No crime in progress. Officer ignored hospital ID badge, clearly visible on camera with Elijah's name and photo. Officer Ruiz informed Harlan that no stolen vehicle report existed. Harlan proceeded with detention anyway. Harlan used the phrase, "you people," when addressing hospital staff who intervened. Harlan threatened hospital administrator with arrest for lawfully recording the interaction on hospital property. This isn't policing, Elijah said quietly. It's intimidation, and you've enabled it for years. The fourth slide. The Officers Network. This one caused visible reactions. A social network map appeared. Officers, including Harlan, connected by lines representing shared online group memberships. Private Facebook groups with names Elijah didn't read aloud, but the screenshots spoke volumes. Posts about urban wildlife with photos of black teenagers. Memes about thin blue line featuring Confederate flags. Comments on Black Lives Matter protests suggesting target practice. Harlan's username commented on a protest photo. Target practice lineup. Deputy Chief Hernandez looked physically ill. She hadn't known. Hale clearly hadn't known either or hadn't wanted to know. These officers frequently work together, cover for each other in reports. Their body camera footage shows patterns. When one makes a questionable stop, others arrive as backup, corroborate the narrative. Elijah stopped the presentation, leaned back in his chair. Here's what happens next. You have two paths. Path 1, federal intervention. Elijah summarized the consent decree he had shown Hale earlier. Federal monitor assigned to the department. All promotions frozen. All hiring decisions require DOJ approval. Public dashboard of every complaint, every stop, every use of force. Duration years minimum. Annual compliance cost millions. Timeline DOJ announcement in hours. If Path 2 isn't chosen, Path 2, voluntary reform. Elijah's terms. He distributed copies of the bound document, the Accountability and Trust Initiative. He walked them through it section by section. Immediate actions. Officer Harlan terminated within hours. No suspension. No paid leave. Fired. Other officers suspended pending full review of their complaint histories. Captain Morris reassigned out of Internal Affairs immediately. Deputy Chief Hernandez promoted to lead Internal Affairs reforms. Structural changes, body cameras always on. No officer discretion to turn off during public interactions. Tampering results in automatic termination. Independent Civilian Review Board with civilians. 2 retired judges. 0 current officers. All votes public. All findings published online. Training overhaul. De-escalation training increases to hours annually. Implicit bias workshops, hours become mandatory. Crisis intervention training required for all officers, not optional. Scenario-based practice with actors from diverse backgrounds. Accountability metrics. Sustained complaints trigger automatic fitness for duty review. Use of force incidents reviewed by external panel within hours. Traffic stop data audited every quarter. Disparities require written explanation from supervising sergeants. The final provision printed in bold. Any failure to comply triggers immediate federal consent decree, with no negotiation period. Union VP Kirkman's face turned red. This is insane. You're treating cops like criminals. We have a contract. Your contract requires adherence to applicable laws. Racial profiling violates the Civil Rights Act and the 14th Amendment. Elijah's tone stayed calm. Officers who engage in racial profiling lose qualified immunity. They become personally liable under Section 1983. That means personal assets, personal bank accounts, personal homes. The union can't protect officers from federal civil rights violations. City Attorney Reeves nodded. She had vetted every word of Elijah's plan. It was legally sound. Hale knew he was cornered. Accept the reforms and possibly save his reputation or fight and lose everything to federal oversight. He looked at Hernandez Park, the union reps. No one met his eyes. I need to consult with my command staff, Hale said finally. You have hours. Elijah closed his laptop. I'll be waiting. He stood, walked out. The meeting was over. He had dictated the terms. He would wait for their answer. But everyone in that room knew there was only one answer possible. At evening, Mayor Elena Vargas stood at a podium outside City Hall. Chief Hale stood to her left, looking like he had aged years in one day. Elijah Brooks stood to her right, calm and composed. Camera flashes lit up the evening. Every local outlet was there. National networks sent reporters. The story had gone viral. Hale read from a prepared statement. The city will implement comprehensive police reform through voluntary initiative. Officer Harlan has been terminated, effective immediately. Other officers suspended pending investigation. Independent Civilian Review Board will be established within days. Body camera policies changing next week. He didn't mention Elijah had forced this. He presented it as the department's choice, leadership responding to community concerns. Everyone watching knew better. Reporters shouted questions. Most were directed at Elijah. Dr. Brooks, why didn't you identify yourself as police commissioner that night? Elijah stepped to the microphone. I shouldn't have to. Every citizen deserves the same respect whether they're a commissioner or a cashier. That's the entire point of reform. Days later, Officer Harlan's termination was upheld by emergency arbitration. The union filed a grievance, but didn't push hard. The evidence was overwhelming. The viral video, the body camera footage, the documented pattern of complaints. Even the union lawyers knew this was unwinnable. Harlan gave one interview to a sympathetic podcast, claimed he was the victim of reverse racism and political correctness. No major outlet picked up the story. His law enforcement career was finished. No department would hire him with this record. Captain Morris accepted voluntary retirement. Pension intact, reputation damaged. It was the compromise Elijah allowed to avoid lengthy litigation. Morris left quietly. 1 month after the incident, new systems started appearing. The technology infrastructure launched first. An app called Clarity Now. Developed by a nonprofit tech organization Elijah had connected with months ago. Every traffic stop generated an automatic public record. Officer name, badge number, reason for stop, duration, outcome. Civilians could access their own stop history, see patterns, file complaints directly through the app. The app included an optional live broadcast feature. Civilians pulled over could activate it with one button. Their phones streamed directly to a monitoring center staffed by civilian advocates. The knowledge that someone was watching in real time changed behavior on both sides. Personnel changes followed. Deputy Chief Maria Hernandez was promoted to Chief of Police when Hale announced early retirement. She was the first Latina police chief in the city's history. Lieutenant Sarah Park became the new head of the training academy, finally implementing the curriculum she had been designing for years. New investigators joined internal affairs. Some came from outside agencies with strong track records. Some came from underrepresented communities within the department, officers who had been frustrated by the old culture. The Independent Review Board seated civilians, 2 retired judges, 0 current officers. Their first meeting was public. Their votes were public. Their findings would be published online within hours of each decision. Months after the parking lot incident, training programs launched across the department. Partnership with the local university's psychology department brought evidence-based implicit bias research into every training session. Officers learned about unconscious bias, how it affected split-second decisions, how to recognize and counteract it. Community ride-along program required hours from all officers. They spent shifts with community members from diverse neighborhoods, seeing the city from civilian perspectives. Some officers resisted at first. Many were surprised by what they learned. De-escalation scenarios were filmed with professional actors representing various demographics, ages, mental health conditions. The scenarios were realistic, challenging. Officers were graded not just on outcomes, but on approach, tone, word choice. A trauma-informed policing curriculum taught officers to recognize how previous negative encounters affected civilian behavior. Someone who seemed uncooperative might be experiencing trauma response from past abuse. This context didn't excuse criminal behavior, but it changed how officers approached interactions. Months after Elijah was handcuffed in the hospital parking lot, the public transparency platform went live. The website updated in real time. Every traffic stop, every arrest, every complaint, every use of force incident. Searchable by officer name, badge number, neighborhood, demographic data. Independent analysts downloaded data sets, published their own reports. The effect was immediate. Traffic stops of black civilians dropped in the first quarter, not because officers avoided legitimate enforcement, but because unjustified stops were too risky. Now, every stop was recorded, reviewed, made public. Officers couldn't rely on vague, suspicious behavior justifications anymore. Use of force incidents dropped. Again, not because officers ignored genuine threats. Because de-escalation training worked, because accountability changed calculation. Civilian complaints dropped. Some of this was better behavior. Some was community members seeing the department take complaints seriously, feeling heard, choosing informal resolution over formal complaints. Officer morale measured through anonymous surveys showed support for the changes. Many officers were relieved. They wanted accountability too. They wanted bad officers gone. They wanted a culture that valued professionalism over aggressive dominance. As for Officer Harlan himself, there was no dramatic downfall, no prison sentence, no public humiliation beyond what he brought on himself. His wife filed for divorce within months. She was an ICU nurse who was horrified by what the investigation revealed about her husband's behavior. She didn't want her name associated with his anymore. Harlan applied to private security firms. All denied him after background checks revealed the termination cause. He moved to a different state. Found work managing equipment at a construction company. No badge, no authority, no power over anyone. His name remained permanently linked to the viral video. Search his name online, and that parking lot footage appeared first. Always would. Elijah never mentioned him again, never gloated, never celebrated his downfall. The system had dealt with Harlan appropriately. That was enough. Months after the reforms began, Elijah organized a national symposium. Policing in the 21st Century, Reform from Within. Police chiefs attended, civil rights attorneys, community organizers, DOJ representatives. They wanted to learn from the city's model. Elijah's keynote focused on prevention, not punishment. That night I was treated like a criminal while wearing scrubs and a hospital badge. But I'm not special. The same thing happens to teenagers walking home, parents dropping kids at school, pastors entering their own churches. The reform isn't about me. It's about the system that made Officer Harlan's behavior acceptable and the culture that protected him for years. He presented updated data. Complaints down, use of force down, community trust up, officer morale up, cost savings significant, 0 misconduct settlements in months compared to an average previously. The reforms worked, not because of punishment, because of accountability. Years later, Elijah still served as Police Oversight Commission Chair, but his influence extended far beyond one city. Now, cities had adopted versions of his reform framework. Law enforcement journals called it the Brooks Protocol. Despite his protests, he didn't want his name on it. He wanted the ideas to spread regardless of who got credit. Federal legislation was pending in Congress. The Law Enforcement Accountability Act drew directly from his work. He had testified before congressional committees, presenting data, answering questions from both parties. Publications featured how one city reformed its police without federal intervention. The article went viral in different circles. This time, policy experts, police chiefs, mayors looking for models that worked. Officer recruitment in the city increased. People wanted to work in a department with integrity, clear standards, real accountability. The reforms didn't hurt recruitment, they helped. Community police initiatives flourished. Basketball leagues, youth mentorship programs, mental health crisis teams pairing unarmed social workers with officers trained in de-escalation. Crime rates remained stable, contradicting critics who predicted reform would cause spikes. Elijah still worked ER shifts, still taught at the medical school. His medical license stayed active. His kids understood what had happened that night. The family used it as an ongoing conversation about systemic change versus individual revenge. His wife, Sophia, co-authored a law review article about civil rights enforcement mechanisms. She was proud of what Elijah had built, but also relieved the death threats from Harlan's supporters, finally stopped after months. Elijah received a letter one afternoon, forwarded through attorneys, handwritten from Harlan. It wasn't an apology, it was defensive, self-pitying, blaming political correctness for his termination, claiming he was just doing his job, insisting he had never done anything wrong. Elijah read it once, filed it away. Some people never learn. The system couldn't wait for individual enlightenment. It had to change anyway. He gave a TED Talk that same month. When the system targets you, change the system. The video received millions of views in weeks. Comments poured in from people sharing their own stories, thanking him for validating their experiences. His message emphasized documentation as power. Record your encounters. Your phone is a civil rights tool. Evidence matters more than anger. He talked about using privilege strategically. My credentials gave me access to change policy. Use whatever advantage you have to lift others. He stressed patience. I didn't yell at Officer Harlan that night. I waited, gathered evidence, dismantled the system that created Harlan. Strategic thinking beats reactive emotion. Most importantly, he focused on systems over individuals. Harlan losing his job isn't justice by itself. Justice is the teenager who won't be profiled next month because body cameras are always on and data is public. These touching stories, these real-life stories of reform show how Black stories can drive systemic change. Beat stories of injustice become blueprints for accountability. In the final segment, Elijah spoke directly to the camera. If you've watched this far, you probably know someone with a similar story. Maybe it's your story. Maybe you've been pulled over for matching a description. Maybe you've been followed in a store. Maybe you've been told you don't belong somewhere you had every right to be. Share your story in the comments. Document your experiences. Know your rights. Demand transparency from your city. Support reform organizations doing this work. I got justice because I had credentials and connections, but everyone deserves justice. That's what we're building. If this moved you, share this video. Subscribe to stay informed. Real-life stories create real change when enough people hear them.